I was 14 when I first picked up a vape. It wasn't anything special, just one of those cheap disposables a friend bought at a gas station. The ones that tasted like fake mango and smelled like summer. I still remember how I stood there, surrounded by a group of my friends, feeling nervous but excited as they passed it around. Everyone acting so casual like this was no big deal. It wasn't peer pressure, not exactly. My friends weren't the kind of people who'd force me into anything, but that didn't mean I didn't feel the need to fit in. You see, high school can be a weird place. You've got all these cliques and groups, and at 14, all you want is to find your spot, to be accepted. Vaping was just part of that. Some kids joined the football team, others got into theater, and then there were people like us. Vaping wasn't about rebellion or making a statement. It was more of a way to bond, to be part of something. That first hit, though, it was nothing like I expected. The smoke was smooth, sweet, and light as it filled my lungs, making me cough just enough to get a laugh from the others. But it wasn't harsh, not like the stories I'd heard about cigarettes. It didn't taste bad. In fact, the fruity flavor was oddly enjoyable. I figured, this isn't so bad, right? It's just vapor. It's not like I'm smoking real cigarettes. I didn't think much about it that night. It was just a moment, just one of those things you try once to say you've done it. The next day, I didn't crave it, and I certainly didn't rush out to get one of my own. But then, a week later, I found myself in another circle with the same friends, and once again, the vape was passed around. This time, I didn't hesitate. It felt familiar now, part of the routine, part of hanging out. Before long, it wasn't just a weekend thing. Vaping crept into my daily life in ways I didn't even notice at first. My friend Jake had one in his pocket every day at school, and between classes or after lunch, we'd sneak off to the back of the gym to take a few hits. It was thrilling at first, the sneaking around, the shared secret between friends. I didn't realize then how easily it could become a habit. I was careful, though. I kept it hidden from my family, especially my mom. She was always on me about healthy habits, always making sure I ate well, exercised, and stayed away from bad influences. If she ever caught wind of what I was doing, she'd flip. So, I hid it. I'd brush my teeth before coming home, spray myself with cologne, and chew gum religiously. I thought I had it under control. But it wasn't just about fitting in anymore. Slowly, vaping became my way to relax. School was getting more stressful, homework was piling up, and the pressure to do well in everything, grades, sports, social life, was building. Vaping was my way to take the edge off. It calmed me down in a way nothing else seemed to, even though I didn't fully understand why. At first, I told myself I wasn't addicted. After all, I didn't need it first thing in the morning, and I wasn't vaping all day long like some kids at school. I convinced myself that as long as I wasn't going through a pod every day, I was fine. But addiction doesn't hit you all at once. It creeps in, little by little. By the time I was 16, vaping was more than just a part of my social life. It was part of my routine. It wasn't just something I did with friends after school. It was something I did alone, in my room, when no one was watching. I started carrying my own vape. One of those sleek refillable ones that I could hide easily in my pocket. The flavors changed, from the fruity ones to more subtle ones like mint or tobacco. But the habit stayed the same. It became my go-to in any situation. Nervous before a test, a few hits would calm me down. Feeling bored or restless at home, vaping filled the void. Stress from school, fights with friends, or just the general anxiety of being a teenager. Vaping was my escape. I wasn't proud of it. In fact, a part of me was ashamed, but I wasn't ready to admit that yet. I kept telling myself it wasn't that bad. I wasn't like those kids who were vaping constantly. Right. I wasn't coughing all the time or feeling sick. It was just vapor. It wasn't hurting anyone. But then things started to change. I noticed it first in the mornings. I'd wake up feeling more tired than usual, even if I'd gotten a full night's sleep. My chest felt tight sometimes, especially after a long day of vaping. It wasn't painful, just uncomfortable, like something heavy was sitting on my lungs. My breathing wasn't as smooth during gym class, and I'd get winded more easily than I used to. At first, I brushed it off. I was young, healthy. This couldn't be from vaping. It must be the weather. Or maybe I was just out of shape. But deep down, I knew. I started Googling things late at night. Effects of vaping. Is vaping bad for your lungs? Can vaping cause shortness of breath? The articles I found were full of conflicting information. Some said it was relatively harmless compared to smoking, while others warned about all kinds of health risks. It scared me, but not enough to quit. Not yet. The other thing that changed was my mood. I didn't notice it at first, but my family did. I was irritable, snapping at my mom over little things or getting frustrated with my sister for no reason. If I went too long without vaping, I'd get anxious and restless, but I refused to connect the dots. It all came to a head one evening when my mom found my vape. I was careless, left it on my desk while I went to grab something from the kitchen. I didn't even realize I'd left it out. But when I walked back into my room, there she was, holding it in her hand, looking both confused and disappointed. "What's this?" she asked, her voice calm but serious. My heart sank. I tried to come up with an excuse, something that would make it seem like it wasn't a big deal. But nothing came out. I just stood there, frozen, as she waited for an explanation. It's not what you think," I stammered. "It's just a vape. It's not like I'm smoking cigarettes or anything." Her face didn't change. She just looked at me for what felt like an eternity before she spoke again. "Why?" That one word hit harder than anything else she could have said. Why? Why was I doing this? I couldn't even give her a straight answer because I wasn't sure myself. It had started as something small, something fun. But now it felt like something I couldn't stop, and that scared me. "I don't know," I finally whispered, my voice barely audible. She didn't yell or lecture me like I expected. Instead, she sat down on the edge of my bed and motioned for me to sit next to her. We sat there in silence for a few minutes before she spoke again. "You know I love you, right? And I just want you to be okay." I nodded, unable to meet her eyes. "We'll figure this out," she said softly, "but you have to want to stop." That night, something shifted. I wasn't ready to quit cold turkey, but for the first time, I admitted to myself that I had a problem. I didn't want to be reliant on this thing anymore. I didn't want to feel like I needed it just to get through the day. Quitting wasn't easy. In fact, it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I tried going cold turkey at first, thinking I could just stop and be done with it. But within a day, the cravings hit hard. My hands shook, my head pounded, and I was irritable to the point of snapping at everyone around me. It was like my body was screaming for that hit of nicotine. I caved more times than I'd like to admit. I'd tell myself I was done, but then the stress of school or life would get to me, and I'd convince myself that one hit wouldn't hurt. But one hit always led to more, and before I knew it, I was back where I started. It was a vicious cycle, and every time I failed, I felt more hopeless. But my mom didn't give up on me. She found resources, talked to doctors, and even got me into a support group for teens dealing with nicotine addiction. It felt weird at first, sitting in a circle with other kids my age, talking about something I was ashamed of. But hearing their stories, realizing I wasn't alone in this, helped more than I expected. Slowly, with their support and my mom's encouragement, I started to make progress. I used nicotine patches for a while, which helped take the edge off the cravings. I found healthier ways to deal with stress. Running, writing, even meditation, something I never thought I'd try. It wasn't an overnight change, but little by little, the grip vaping had on me loosened. It's been a year since I last vaped. It still feels strange to say that, like a part of me is surprised I actually managed to quit. There are days when the cravings still hit, especially when I'm stressed or when I see friends vaping. But now, I know how to handle it. Quitting didn't just change my health, it changed the way I see myself. I'm stronger than I thought I was. I've learned that I can overcome the things that hold me back, even when it feels impossible. If there's one thing I'd tell anyone struggling with addiction, it's this: You're not alone, and you're not weak for needing help. It's okay to lean on others, to take small steps, and to mess up along the way. What matters is that you keep trying, that you don't give up on yourself, because if I can do it, so can you.